Oh, and if you stay to the end, I have this tip for you. We're going to talk about three main things in this video. We're going to talk about the hidden cost of a cruise to be aware of, tips to teach you how to save money on your cruise. We're going to talk about how to budget for your cruise, excursions, onboard spending, and a few extra tidbits that you may not know about. So if you're interested, keep on watching. Hey, this is Bridgitte, and if this is your first time here, welcome. And if this is not your first time, welcome back. Just some quick things about me. I am a wife, a mom to a toddler. I love all things travel. I love all things food, faith, family. Here on this channel, I talk about travel related content, obviously, and also some lifestyle content. If you are ready to get started, let's jump into the topic of the day. Lately, I've been getting a few emails and questions about cruise related things. So that's what I'm going to do a series on for the next few weeks. First things first is gratuities. Depending on the cruise line, the gratuities may or may not already be included in your cruise fare. A lot more cruise lines have started to do this now that Virgin is known for their all-inclusive pricing, which is amazing. More of your premium and luxury lines will automatically include gratuities. Double check ahead of time whether the gratuities are automatically added or not. Number two, if you've never been on a cruise before, you may think that it's like an all-inclusive resort. The drinks are included, the food obviously, but on a cruise, that's not always the case. This varies by each cruise line, so you have to check with each cruise line beforehand or your travel agent to see what's already included. Your mass market cruise lines, which are considered Carnival, Royal Caribbean, MSC, typically do not include alcoholic beverages. They also don't include non-alcoholic beverages like your pop or soda or Coke, whatever you call it, depending on where you're from. I'm from Ohio, so I say pop. Those things, your specialty coffees, sparkling waters are not typically included in the price of your cruise. Most times you have the option to add on a beverage package. There's usually 2 or more beverage package options. One of your beverage packages usually includes your non-alcoholic beverages and your bottled waters, things of that nature. Then there's typically 2 different alcoholic beverage packages, like your premium alcohol versus non-premium. Along the same line, again, this is not like an all-inclusive resort, so not all food is included. Typically, your buffet food, your main dining room food are included. However, if you want to go to a specialty restaurant, that will be an extra charge. But there's also dining packages where you can have unlimited specialty dining. I know that Celebrity offers that option. So that's also something to check out specific to your cruise line, or ask somebody more knowledgeable, a travel agent, a friend that is a seasoned cruiser, or use YouTube University, like I like to call it. Okay, another hidden charge that you may not know about if you're a first time cruiser are Wi-Fi charges. There is not free Wi-Fi on a cruise. But to be quite honest, most Wi-Fi, even when you pay for it, sucks. So I use that time to be unplugged from the world, especially if I'm traveling with my family. I don't need to necessarily call home. Most times they're with me, so I don't have to worry about that. But if there is a special case where you need to be in constant communication with someone back home, I would advise to pay for that extra Wi-Fi. There's different levels for Wi-Fi packages. So you could choose the basic Wi-Fi, which is good for messaging back home, or you could choose the upper tier level of Wi-Fi to upload to social media, maybe stream a couple videos. That's about it. Some other hidden costs are going to be for extra activities on board. I know Carnival and Royal Caribbean, they have extra things like roller coasters, the flow rider. That's going to be a little extra. So make sure you account for that as well. Okay, if you made it this far, you may be like, Bridgitte, there's all these hidden costs to a cruise. Why would I choose a cruise? I know. I thought the same thing because I was used to all-inclusive resorts. I'm like, I don't want to have to think about it at all. However, I am a convert since my first cruise a few years ago. By October, I will have been on 4 different cruise lines: Carnival, Royal Caribbean, Virgin, and Celebrity. I say all that to say that I actually love cruising now. And I used to be one of those people that were like, cruising is not real travel, and I don't want to be like herded like cattle off a ship. I was just really judgmental about cruising and honestly pretty ignorant to all that cruising offers. And now that I have a 2-year-old and we went on our first cruise as a family this past November, I honestly might prefer it just because it was easier to have a home base for my 2-year-old to go to at the end of the day or in between activities for nap time. The food was there, so we didn't have to think about, okay, where we're going to go to get breakfast for him. He has food allergies. And in my experience, the cruise lines were very accommodating, very allergen friendly in my case. I don't know if that's the case for everybody, but that's another video about the pros and cons to cruising. Next, we're going to talk about how to budget for your cruise. One of the main benefits for me is that you can pay off a cruise over time. There is a cruise for 2025 that I'm currently looking into, a Mediterranean cruise for our family. And right now, I'm just a little indecisive about which cruise line I want to go with. So that's why I haven't booked yet. But if I wanted to book today, I could start paying that off every month or every other week up until that final payment is due, which is usually 90 days out from the sailing. One of the biggest ways to budget for a cruise is to research the port of calls that you're going to. For instance, we're going on a Mediterranean cruise next year. Barcelona is one of those ports of calls that we're interested in going to. Me and my husband have been to Barcelona before, so we already know the offerings. But if I didn't know anything, my first step would be to research on YouTube, on Google, on Instagram, and see, oh, what are the main tourist sites? What are some other cool things to do there that I might be interested in? That way I can prioritize the activities or the food I want to eat. Because if you're doing a cruise, you're not going to be able to do it all. So being able to know ahead of time what's offered is important. Next step is to then decide, am I going to book through the cruise line directly or am I going to reach out to an outside vendor? If this is your first cruise, I recommend maybe sticking with the cruise line. However, if you've been on a cruise or two before or you're well seasoned, although some well seasoned cruisers do get left behind, I would recommend going through a reputable vendor. So knowing ahead of time, do they have an on-time guarantee to make sure you get back to the ship, or make sure that the excursion that you're booking ends at least 3 hours before you need to be back to the ship. The 3 hour rule is my rule. It's not like a known rule. I just have that rule for myself, and it's worked for me and my client. I may not have said this, but a benefit to using the cruise line to book your excursions is that they guarantee you're going to be back to the ship on time. And if you're not back to the ship on time, they promise to not leave you. That's a big benefit, especially for first-time cruisers who may have some anxiety about getting left behind. With that being said, just know that it may be pricier to go with a cruise line versus an outside vendor. Another tip for budgeting an excursion is to book sooner rather than later. If you book a month before, you risk that excursion or activity being sold out, and that is tragic. When you have your mind set on something you want to do and you're not able to do it, I don't know about you, but I don't take disappointment well. So yeah. My next tip is to have an onboard spending limit. You want to set a daily limit for your onboard activities, because if you don't and you're just like, oh, I want to go get a spa treatment today, or oh, I want to go on the roller coaster today, or oh, I want to play bingo today, those things quickly add up. Trust me. So you want to have a set limit. My next tip is to use cash when you're on shore excursions and when you're in port. And if you can, try to use local currency. That can save you money, because there's been several times when I have been bartering with a local, maybe it's like a bracelet or something I want to buy, and they're like, it's $20. And I'm like, oh no, I only have $10. Like, will you take that? You're able to negotiate more when it's cash versus a card, because your card is going to swipe and go through regardless. Also, having cash on hand and having a set limit helps you to not overspend with your credit card, because it's so easy to just swipe all day. You might end up spending twice the amount that you intended. Another thing is to set aside money for tips. Some people forget to account for tips until it's a day or two you have to go on vacation. You want to have tip money for the porters, the people who take your luggage when you first arrive to get on the ship. I usually tip $3 to $5 per bag. Again, it's not mandatory, but it's just something nice to do. They're carrying your heavy bags. You want to give them something. Also, you may want to tip your tour guides if you go on an excursion. Okay, I'm going to say this in almost every video. Get travel insurance. Make sure that's something that you're budgeting for. Travel insurance is one of those non-negotiables, y'all. I said this before and I'll say it again. You never think that you're going to need travel insurance until you need it. And when you do need it, you're just going to be glad that you had it. This is the final topic, and that's going to be how to save money on your cruise. I'm going to break it down into how to save money pre-cruise, during your cruise, and post-cruise. Number one, when you're thinking about booking a cruise, make sure you book early. The earlier, the better. You are not going to get a better deal the longer you wait. My side note is to at least put down the deposit, but hold off on that final payment. Because if the price does get cheaper, you can always get a price adjustment. If you didn't pay off your cruise yet, that price adjustment will be in the form of cash. If you did already pay off your cruise, you will still get that adjustment. It's just going to be in the form of a credit you can use on board. Now, there are some like last minute deals on cruises, but those deals are usually like 2 weeks before the cruise. And if you're waiting that long, you're most likely not going to get the cabin type that you want. So don't chance it. Or it may be a sold out sailing. I know when we went on Carnival Celebration back in November, it was completely sold out. And so if you were banking on that last minute deal, you were SOL. Another way to save money pre-cruise is to look for special packages. A lot of times there will be packages and they will couple your Wi-Fi, your beverage package, your dining package if you want specialty dining. and that's a significant savings. Also, it doesn't really save you money up front, but it might in the long run. Even if this is your first cruise and you may not think that you're going to want to cruise ever again, still sign up for the cruise line's loyalty program because points do accumulate for each cruise that you go on. If you do end up loving cruising, which if you're like me, I feel like you will. So you want to make sure that those points accumulated from the very beginning. You don't want to look back and be like, oh, I wish I would have signed up for it. Another way to save money pre-cruise is to pack your snacks and drinks ahead of time. You are allowed to bring pre-packaged snacks. So basically store-bought snacks that aren't opened. You can't bring any homemade like peanut butter sandwiches, and that's for health and safety reasons. Cruise lines also allow you to bring up to 12 cans of either like a sparkling water, pop, juice, but it must be canned. You're also allowed to bring up to one 750 milliliter bottle of wine. Again, 750 milliliters of wine. It cannot be the larger bottles like the Costco size bottles. They will not allow it. Some lines also don't allow you to bring port wine, and port wine has a higher alcohol percentage. I don't know if I said this, but that wine allowance is also only per adult per stateroom. Another way to save money on your cruise is to utilize the free activities and entertainment. There are so many good options for free entertainment on a cruise line, especially Royal Caribbean. That was like one of my top favorites. At the time that we went, we saw the production of Grease, and that was like a Broadway production. It was amazing. And I love Grease. That's one of my top movies. I had a ball. I was trying not to sing every song, but I was there to have a good time. There's also free activities throughout the day and night. There's a lot of comedy shows that are included for free, trivia nights that are included. Bingo, you do have to pay extra for, but I love me some bingo, so I will pay more for that. Also, some fitness classes that are included. Another thing to save money during your cruise is to look for deals on port days. A lot of times there are spa discounts during port days because they're expecting everybody to get off the ship and explore. And so they're trying to bring people into the spa. Also, you can get free alcohol, like free champagne. Virgin does free champagne at their sail away parties. And that's pretty much unlimited. Like whenever your glass is empty, you can ask them to bring you another one. My mom had like 4 or 5 glasses. She had a good time. Also offer free champagne at shopping events that they'll host on board on the cruise shops. The next step to save money on beverages is to check for the special drink of the day. Sometimes those will be about $8, $9, and the options usually rotate. This next tip indirectly helps you save money during your cruise by helping you not rack up additional charges on your phone bill. This tip is to put your phone on airplane mode as soon as you get on board. Don't wait till the sail away party is done because you might have a few drinks and by that time you may forget all about it. Just do it right away. Putting your phone on airplane mode is going to avoid roaming charges. My next tip for saving money post cruise is for if you're flying back home. If you're flying, make sure that you do not book your flight home anytime within 4 hours of disembarkation. The reason is I've seen people book their flights back as early as 2 hours after we arrive back in port, and they end up missing their flight, having to reschedule, and having to pay more to rebook that flight. If disembarkation is at 8 a.m., you want to make sure that your flight back home is no sooner than 12 p.m. If you book your flight for 11 a.m., you may think, oh, I have enough time. We'll be able to get off the ship. You never know about delays. That may not be the case, especially if you have to wait a long time through customs. I've had to wait anywhere from 20 to 1.5 hours, especially if you're using a birth certificate instead of a passport. That customs line is going to be so much longer. My recommendation is to use a passport all the time, but I understand that not everybody has one. And if that's the case, make sure that you are allotting for more time. You also want to allot for traffic and maybe a longer commute to the airport. You want to make sure that you have enough time to navigate airport security. And that 4-hour rule is for domestic flights. If you are traveling internationally, say from Barcelona, Spain to New York City, you want to have even more time. That 4-hour rule does not work. You don't want to book your flight any sooner than maybe 6, 7 hours from the time that you're set to disembark. This is part 1 of the cruise series for first-time cruisers. There's going to be more about essential packing items, how to choose the right cruise line, tips specific to certain cruise lines, and destination insight. I want this to be a community of conversation and sharing ideas. So if you've been on a cruise before, make sure that you comment below with the best tips that you have for saving money on your cruise. Oh, and if you stay to the end, I have this tip for you. A lot of people don't know this tip, but if you're a shareholder in a cruise line, for instance, if you own stock in Royal Caribbean, oftentimes they will give you an onboard credit. I have some more tips and advice for you guys, but I don't want this video to be too long. So until next time, peace.